Welcome back to Outdoors with the Morgans. We got a nice gentle shower right now. They're calling for some thunderstorms, but no need to worry. Because in our local area, we have a new stormwater authority. This was brought to my attention because they were kind enough to send me a couple bills that I've never seen before and a newsletter. Basically, as far as I can tell, it's a rain tax. Now the tax is $72 per year per parcel, okay? So here where we live, we have 3 separate parcels, so our tax bill will be $216 per year. But it does say if you have a commercial property, it's going to cost you more, because it says commercial, industrial, and other use fees are based on the amount of impervious surface area contained on the parcel multiplied by the $6 ERU. I believe ERU stands for equivalent residential unit. And it also answers some questions that I'm sure a lot of people have, like why do we need a stormwater authority? It says the authority was established to address growing concerns related to flooding, water pollution, and aging infrastructure. As our community expands and more surfaces become impervious, the natural absorption of rainwater diminishes, leading to increased runoff and strain on existing drainage systems. I agree with that part wholeheartedly. The more roofs you have, the more pavement you have, the more hard surfaces, the faster the water moves, the more erosion you're going to have, and the more water you're going to get downstream, and you're going to have more flooding. We definitely have a problem. Do I think they're going to be able to tax away flooding issues? I do not. And my question is, there goes the neighbor, I think we already have a lot of things in place, so somebody must not be doing their job. Now, the area that we live in, which is north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, has seen steady and consistent growth for decades. Housing plan after housing plan, shopping centers, all types of development. The new thing seems to be more duplexes, quads, and even apartment buildings. Well, with each new development, you get more runoff. You know, it's not one development that's going to cause all the problems. It's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts. The more of them, the bigger the problem is going to be over time. With each new building or new roadway, you have more impervious material. So like everything is designed to get rid of water as quickly as possible. The water runs off the roof, into the gutters, into the downspouts, down to the stormwater. Same with the roads, all the culverts on the roads, and this creates more runoff. To combat this problem, they require a stormwater management plan, which usually consists of collecting all the stormwater and diverting it to a big retention pond. You see these retention ponds everywhere. And what that's supposed to do is control the stormwater that hits on that piece of property. But the problem is, it's not just the roofs, it's not just the roads, even the yards in these places, the lawns, it's all compacted with equipment, thin layer of topsoil. They start, growing grass, they fertilize that, you have chemicals, all this stuff gets run off, creates more pollution, more runoff, and more problems. Now, my question is, and this is what I don't know the answer to, we already have a plan in place. In other words, if you're going to start a new development, you have to follow strict guidelines and submit a stormwater management plan, which is designed by an engineer and approved by the townships. Obviously, that's not working if we have to now create a stormwater authority. You know what I'm saying? That's my point on the whole thing. And I don't think, no matter what you do, another taxing authority is going to going to solve the problem. I just can't see how that will happen. The problem isn't just the volume of water, it's the speed. Water that used to take hours or days to seep through a watershed is now racing downhill in a matter of minutes. The result is you get flooded roads, basements filling with water, creeks eroding their banks, eating away at the land and the trees. So the way I see it is this is what the problem is. The developer moves in, they buy up a piece of property, they go through all the proper channels, they submit all their paperwork, they have an engineered plan for the development, a stormwater management plan, all that stuff gets submitted, it gets approved, they build the development. and then they build all the houses. People move into the houses, and the developer moves on to find another piece of property while the local community is left holding the bag. So I think the main problem here is the actual stormwater management plans don't seem to be sufficient. So instead of fixing that, they just want to create a new authority to take care of the problem downstream, so to speak. Now, I believe most people will agree with more development, you're going to have more stormwater runoff, more erosion, more pollution, and more flooding downstream, regardless of the stormwater management plan. I mean, you think about it, you got more roofs, roadways, hard packed lawns, all that kind of stuff is going to contribute to the problem. So I agree, we have a problem with stormwater runoff. Now, the solution to that problem is where I disagree with many people. Something that they don't talk about very often, or never, is economies of scale. And what that is this. The more homes that are built in this area, the more developments that are approved, is the bigger the tax base, okay? Yet the township and these local governments still have some fixed costs that don't change with more people. In other words, the road that I grew up on, for example, when I was a kid, the township had to maintain that 3-mile stretch of road. And on that road, there were probably, I don't even know, 15 homes. Today there are 50. So now you have 50 people paying the property taxes instead of 15 to maintain that same 3-mile stretch of road. So it's something they don't want to talk about. They're bringing a lot more money in with all these new developments, and I think the problems need addressed with that revenue instead of creating another taxing authority. But anyway, right now I want to head back to the house and I'm going to show you the proper way to handle stormwater. All right, we're back at the house here. We're going to take a ride out in the woods and talk about the proper way, really the only way, to manage stormwater. Now, what you see here is without a doubt the best way to manage stormwater runoff, not develop it. Now, I know that's not an option, but that is the solution, the real solution. Undeveloped land is like a giant sponge. Grass, trees, brush, they all absorb water. Tree roots, they create like little channels underground, like mini plumbing systems that help rainfall soak in and they replenish the groundwater. When rain hits leaves, branches, and barks of trees, of plants, a lot of that water never even makes it to the ground. It evaporates back into the atmosphere from the surface of the vegetation. That's called interception loss. Then you have infiltration. That's what water does to reach the ground and gets slowed down by the leaf litter, loose soil, and it seeps into the earth. Tree roots break up the soil, allowing more water to infiltrate rather than run off. Infiltration is what filters and replenishes the groundwater. You don't have that happen where you have a housing plan or a shopping center. And you also have transpiration. Once the water is in the ground, plants take it up through their roots, use what they need, and then they release the excess water vapor through their leaves. That process is called transpiration. So trees and vegetation don't just slow water down, they actually absorb it and use it, reducing the volume that ends up rushing downhill. That whole system vanishes when you replace it with roads, rooftops, and driveways. Now, we have acres and acres of property that's all woods, and then we also have a few areas that I cleared. This one coming up is a good example of that. A few years ago, we had a bad storm, and we had some of those straight line winds, and it took down a bunch of trees out here. Well, I came out here to clean that up, and I decided it would be a nice place for like a meadow out in the middle of the woods. So I took down probably 200 trees, but to replace those trees, I turned this into a food plot for the deer, the turkeys. They all seem to love it. I currently have buckwheat planted here. Now, although I used heavy equipment in this area, once I had all the trees removed, all the stumps taken out, once I got all that done, I graded everything up. The topsoil was still in place, and then I used a rototiller to fluff it back up again before I seeded. That way it's not tracked in real tight. It's not real, it's not a firm surface. where water will just run off of it. On all of our property, you would be hard-pressed to find a single erosion channel, which is caused from accelerated runoff that washes away the ground. On all the property, I don't think you would find one. But if you were to go to any new housing development that was under construction or road job or anything like that, you will find hundreds and hundreds of erosion reels. Now, we are one of the few remaining families that haven't sold out to a developer, and I have no plans to do so. And it's kind of ironic when you think about it. I'm the guy that drives the big diesel pickup truck. I run a sawmill. You know, at first glance, people probably don't think I'm the most environmentally friendly, but in reality, we're doing way more here to prevent stormwater runoff than any of these developments or any of the neighborhoods. Perfect timing for this video. We're getting a big shower right now, and like I was talking about, some of the rain doesn't even hit the ground. I'm standing underneath this maple tree here, staying relatively dry, but everything's working perfectly the way that it should. I'm curious, let me know in the comments, do you have a stormwater authority where you live? If you don't, you probably will soon enough. Putting her down pretty good out there now. Now, to kind of review what we talked about and what my opinion is, yes, I agree. Stormwater runoff is increasing in this area. It's getting worse. More erosion, more pollution, more flooding. All of that is a direct result of more developments, more roofs, more roads, more pavement. All that kind of stuff contributes to it. Do I think a stormwater authority is the answer? Absolutely not. They're already getting a bunch more money from the larger tax base, and all these little programs that pop up, my biggest issue, I think, is they never go away. Here in Pennsylvania, I think it was the late 1800s, we had the Johnstown flood. Horrible flood. I think over 2,000 people were killed in that flood. Well, I think it was in 1936, years later, they put in place a temporary tax called the Johnstown flood tax to help rebuild Johnstown. That was in 1936, and it was a 10% tax on liquor. By 1942, the town of Johnstown was rebuilt. That tax is still in place today, except it's no longer 10%, it is now 18%, and the money just goes into the general fund. So think about that. This is the same type of thing. These taxes never go away. All they do is increase, and they never really go to where they're intended for. You know what I mean? That's my opinion. I base my opinion on history and just knowing how local, state, and federal government works. We don't need another tax. But anyway, look how nice that is, huh? Now, before we wrap this up, I want to be perfectly clear about something. I don't fault anyone that decides to sell out to a developer. You know, everybody has their own situation or circumstances, and it's not my place to tell somebody else what they can or cannot do with their own property. Same thing goes for all the people that are moving to the area. They need a place to live. It's a nice area. They buy the house. Nothing against them at all. But as a taxpayer, I feel that it is my place to kind of push back when these new authorities pop up like this. This is no different than, you know, let's say there's a new pothole authority. They're going to say there's more cars on the road, there's more potholes, we need more money. But what they're not telling you is more cars on the road, they're getting more fuel tax, and it's already covered by some other agency. We don't need some other government authority taxing us with a tax that is never going to go away, and it's just going to go up and up each year. Like I mentioned, the Johnstown flood tax, 1936. The town was rebuilt in 1942. That tax over time has almost doubled and just goes to the general fund and is squandered away. But anyway, I think that's about it for today's video. I appreciate y'all being here, and I will catch you on the next one.